I stared at my phone for what seemed like an eternity, the screen flickering in the semi-darkness of the IMP office. Moxie's concerned voice drifted through the air, but it felt distant, muffled by the whirlwind of memories swirling inside my head. I had somehow completely forgotten about Stolas. Sir? Are you okay? Moxie asked, worry stitching across his face. Who's on the phone? Luna chimed in, her ears twitched with curiosity. But I couldn't respond. My mouth opened as if to speak, but all I could do was watch the screen transfixed. The wallpaper was a picture of Stolas waving cheerily, only it wasn't the dignified figure I remembered. This version of Stolas was rendered in a slightly softer, more affectionate light. A woman with a cascade of curls framing her hair-shaped face. I'm going outside for a bit to take a call, I said, my voice having uncertainty rippling through every word. I slipped out of the office into the narrow alleyway filled with the scent of concentrated gases and faint echoes of people walking by. My reflection flickered momentarily in a shard of broken glass, and I felt a strange mix of worry and curiosity. As I hit the green button to answer the call, a wave of warmth enveloped me, a feeling Blitz had never felt before while making business calls, at least not in this way. Hey there, this is Blitz, what's up? I tried to sound as natural and as possible, though I could feel Blitz's underlying personality gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. I need your services for a very special event, Blitzy. Stolas replied on the other end, her voice high and sweet. Event? Like a party? I asked. If I could navigate this conversation, steer it into a beneficial direction, I'd potentially begin to reshape my new life. It's my daughter's birthday and I'd like for you and your team to act as our bodyguards. I'm taking Octavia to Lulu Land, and I can't exactly let the demons of hell wreak havoc on that day, can I? She chuckled, a sound foreign to both the past and current me. Of course, absolutely. I grinned, allowing Blitz's wild personality to seep through. Lulu Land? I haven't been there in ages. But inside, I was contemplating what else had changed. If Stolas became a woman, did that mean Stella was a man? Perfect. I knew I could count on you, she replied, oblivious to the strange energy emanating from me. Yeah, always got your back, I exclaimed, trying to suppress a chuckle. The future raced alongside me, the knowledge I carried filling my mind, every triumph I had been through in this new life put into question. As the call drew to an end with Stolas obliviously unaware of my slight awkwardness, I returned to the office, worried but pumped with energy. The shadows of my past loomed ever closer, but I had a distinct direction of the story at least. And with this, I was determined to pursue molding IMP into an empire that no one in hell could ignore. Guys, I called out, bursting into the room, eyes gleaming. We're going to Lulu Land. Moxie and Millie exchanged surprised glances, while Luna raised an eyebrow. That one sentence contained a promise, a glimpse of the new life I was about to construct, a life drenched in chaos and potential. Lulu Land? Moxie squeaked, his brows knitting. What's that? Oh, just a little amusement park where we'll be handling the protection of a certain owl and her daughter. Like I said, it's a party. They looked at me with intrigued expressions, but underneath my surface bravado, a moment of silence loomed. It was time to face it all. Stolas Pav. I placed my phone back down on the toilet, enjoying the bubbles flying around the luxurious tub. It was nice talking to Blitz again, and he sounded excited to talk to me as well. A smile slipped onto my face as I reminisced about our recent interaction. But something was odd. Yesterday morning I'd woken up groggy as ever, still under the influence of drowsiness, and in that state I went to the kitchen for another drink. I reached into the cabinet and instead of its usual vibrant green it was a subtle brown mixed together with green and pink. I hadn't noticed at the time, and when I drank it I found myself transforming rapidly. My chest felt heavier than normal, waist slimmed, and hips slightly larger. My eyes darted around my figure, slightly awake and confused. I had turned into a woman. Wondering who did this to me, I thought about the only person willing to lace my drink so brazenly, Stella. I saw Blitz on my screen, slightly nervous but excited to see him again. He was happy to see me and didn't seem to mind the transformation I had undergone. I tried to undo this with my own magic, but it seemed too powerful to undo. Luckily for me, this was still hell. People had all kinds of crazy relationships. Some had fetishes beyond normal even for Hell's standards, and over 50% of Hell were either in a polygamous relationship or sleep around with others. This was different from those situations but no much weirder when compared. And judging by his reaction, he clearly did not mind. Relaxed and reassured by Blitz's calm and caring demeanor, I soaked deeper into the tub, lost in thought about tomorrow's plans. That was my cue. All right, team, we need to come correct. Moxie, you're on logistics for transport. Millie, you're with me on security arrangements. Luna, you can take the day off. Just make sure if any calls come you document them in Moxie's stead. Why are we planning so far in advance? Luna retorted, her tail flicking dismissively. You're the one who usually rolls with the punches. Because, I replied, feeling that warmth spread through my chest again, this isn't just about rolling with the punches anymore. The van rumbled along the cracked roads of the Greed Ring, the symbol of IMP shining in the green world. Heading towards Mammon's Lulu Land, an amusement park unlike any other in Hell. The air outside was thick with the smell of sulfur and brimstone. Why are we going to this dump again, Blitz? Moxie asked, his voice filled with skepticism. I don't see the appeal. Oh, come on, Moxie. I grinned, my eyes twinkling with that usual chaotic energy. It's Lulu Land. You can't tell me you've never wanted to experience the twisted thrills of Hell's most famous amusement park. It's literally the most horrifying place in all of Hell, Blitz, Moxie muttered, in disinterest. Yeah, Moxie's is right. This place is a nightmare, Millie added, her voice laced with unequal parts excitement and worry. As we moved through the road, finally arriving at the park, I felt a sense of déjà vu within me. This was my opportunity to reshape the narrative, and prove our worth to Stolas. Finding Stolas proved easy. The tall figure was waving over to us, standing next to a smaller owl with curly hair. Octavia's expression was a mix of boredom and trepidation, and her eyes widened when she saw us approaching. Blitz, I'm so glad you could make it. Stolas welcomed us with a radiating ease. Octavia, this is your bodyguard team for today. You brought your, Octavia said, her voice tired yet cautious, glancing at us before looking back up at Stolas. Don't worry, everything is gonna go fine. You'll have a blast. I reassured her, and I could sense the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. We'll make sure nothing goes wrong. Millie stood by, puffing her chest out proudly, while Moxie adjusted his tie, clearly nervous yet eager. Luna could be heard through our earpieces figuring out tech options on her device, prepping for surveillance. As the mission officially kicked off, I felt a rush of energy. We had this. Today was about making sure that Octavia celebrated her birthday without a hitch, and beneath the joy of the event was my personal mission to change how Octavia feels towards her dad in an understanding way instead of how Stolas came to the realization in the original series. As we moved deeper into the park, it wasn't long before we encountered the first of many scams. We passed a colorful booth advertising the world's tallest demon roller coaster, with a giant sign that read, "Only one soul needed for admission." But I was already rolling my eyes. The line was long, but there was no way I was waiting in it. Hey, Stolas, let's keep moving, I said, giving Stolas a look and steering us toward the next attraction. Lulu Land's got way more up its sleeve than a rusty coaster. Stolas, still grinning like a child, nodded eagerly with Octavia following close behind. I do love a good thrill, Blitz, but perhaps something a bit more refined? Refined? In Hell? You've gotta be kidding me. I chuckled and pulled him away, the sounds of distant screams filling the air as we passed by the coaster's intimidating structure. Our next stop was a flashy booth that promised immortal prizes, a carnival game that was practically a scam in neon lights. The booth's sign boldly proclaimed, "Spin the wheel of damnation, win eternal power." I exchanged a glance with Stolas. What do you say? You ready to try your luck? Stolas raised an elegant eyebrow. Eternal power for a spin? Sounds too good to be true. Exactly, I said with a wink. But why let that stop us? I was already walking up to the booth, where a smug demon operator with a long, jagged tail stood beside a wheel that seemed to glow with an eerie red light. One spin, please, I said with a flourish, tossing a handful of soul coins into the air, distracting the operator just long enough for me to pocket one more coin than I intended. The operator caught the coins, visibly thrilled. "Ah, an easy mark. Spin for your prize, my friend." The wheel clicked and whirred, but it was clear that it was rigged. Only one section was designed to land on the eternal power prize, and that was where it would always land. But I wasn't about to let that stop me. I leaned over, quickly scanning the giant wheel's mechanisms and a certain loose bolt. A little twist here, a tug there, and the wheel was altered just enough to land on the eternal power segment no matter what. "Here we go," I called out dramatically, spinning the wheel with all the flair I could muster, giving Stolas and Octavia an exaggerated look of confidence. The wheel spun wildly, much faster than it should have, and with an almost comical screech, it slowed, right to the eternal power spot. The operator's eyes widened in disbelief as the wheel stopped. "Impossible," he sputtered, staring at me. I couldn't help but laugh. "Hey, it's all in the wrist." I grabbed the glowing orb that appeared in the prize compartment, passing it over to Stolas with a grin. "Here, you can have it. Might make you feel extra powerful." Stolas looked at the orb, clearly amused. "Are you sure I should take this? It's eternal power, after all." "Yeah, sure, I'm sure," I said with a shrug. "I'll just grab another one later on my way out." Stolas chuckled softly, clearly impressed. "You never failed to amaze me, Blitz." Feeling the weight of the moment, guts spilled over me. Moxie, ever observant, killed the assassin before he could finish his leap onto the Goetia. We continued through the park, dodging assassins and the unwinnable games, but there was also a slight change in the demeanor of Octavia as well. Although she was clearly still not enjoying herself, she was much more relaxed instead of annoyed. Eventually, we found ourselves walking toward the stage where Fizzaroli was performing. His voice echoed in the air, glitchy, distorted, and all too familiar. The real Fizzaroli wasn't here. This was just a pre-programmed android, stumbling through his act, barely maintaining the energy of his performance. Stolas, however, was clapping along with enthusiasm. "Isn't he delightful, Blitz?" Stolas said with a grin, clearly enjoying the spectacle. I glanced over at Octavia, sitting beside him, looking utterly uninterested, her head resting in her hand, eyes glazed over. Her indifference was palpable, and I could feel the weight of it. Stolas, despite his joy, hadn't noticed. I couldn't let the same thing play out as it did in the original timeline. I needed to make a change, one that wasn't just about preventing an awkward family moment. It was about making Stolas realize what mattered. I leaned toward him, my voice low but determined. "Hey, Stolas, I know you did this for your daughter, but Lululand's clearly not the answer here." Stolas looked at me, momentarily confused. "What do you mean, Blitz?" "Look at her," I said, nodding toward Octavia. "What Octavia really needs isn't more distractions, it's you." Stolas blinked, slowly understanding what I was getting at. He turned to look at Octavia, who hadn't even glanced at him during Fizzaroli's performance. There was a quiet realization in his eyes as he saw how his daughter was still distant, despite all his attempts to impress her. I continued, my voice a little softer. "You're trying, Stolas, but maybe it's time to try in a way that actually matters to her. Don't just rely on your past experiences and flashy gestures, be there, really be there for her." Stolas stood up slowly, his eyes filled with a new kind of clarity. For the first time, I saw him not just as the powerful demon prince, but as a father, someone who was finally understanding what his daughter needed from him. "Thank you, Blitzo," Stolas said quietly, his voice full of gratitude. I might have been too wrapped up in my own way of doing things to see what really matters. I gave him a knowing smile. Sometimes it takes a little chaos to figure that out, and the O's silent. I stepped back, letting them have their moment, feeling a strange sense of accomplishment wash over me. Maybe this time, things would be different. Maybe this time, Stolas would be the father Octavia needed him to be. But that fleeting feeling of pride was interrupted. Before I could leave, Fizzaroli, who had been clumsily trying to salvage his botched performance, suddenly froze, his mechanical eyes locking onto me from across the crowd. The smile on his face faltered as he tilted his head, recognition sparking in his circuits. "No way," the mechanical voice hissed, glitching as the robot paused mid-laugh. The lights in his eyes flickered as he stopped his performance entirely, staring at me with a growing suspicion. "It's you, Blitzo." A glitchy hum filled the air, cutting through the moment, pulling my attention away. My instincts immediately screamed at me that something was wrong. I turned just in time to see the mechanical figure of Fizzaroli stumbling toward me, his unnerving smile distorted by the static emanating from his body. His eyes, usually filled with cartoonish glee, were now narrowed in spiteful anger, flickering with a sickly green glow. "You think you can just waltz off after ruining my performance, Blitzo?" His voice crackled through his robotic frame, sharp with distortion. "You got some nerve." I felt the temperature drop. The amusement park's chaotic hum seemed to die down around us, as if the world itself knew the fire of the past was about to be settled here. I didn't flinch, but past Blitz took over just a bit, flaring my anger. "Well, I'm not about to stand here all day listening to your malfunctioning karaoke, Fizz. Take a hint." Fizzaroli's limbs twitched, his smile growing. Metal arms elongating like rubber bands snapping back into place, stretching towards me with unsettling speed. "You always think you can escape," he snarled, his voice grating through the static. "Not this time, Blitzo." I reacted fast, ducking just as one of his mechanical limbs shot toward me. It grazed the air where I'd been standing, leaving a streak of sparks in its wake. Before he could pull back, I was already moving, rolling to the side and drawing my knife with a practiced flick of my wrist. "You sure you want to keep this up, Fizz?" I taunted, a grin tugging at my lips despite the situation. "You're looking a little off, don't you think?" He growled, re-extending his limbs to wrap around me, his mechanical arms coiling like snakes. His movements were erratic, unstable. Still, he was fast. Too fast. I slashed at one of the limbs coming toward me, the knife cutting through it like butter, sending sparks flying as the severed hand fell to the ground with a clatter. "Not bad, huh?" I muttered under my breath, already back on my feet and ready for his next move. But Fizzaroli wasn't done yet. His body jerked violently, his arms extending further, longer. "You think you can just cut me down like that? You don't know who you're dealing with." Fizzaroli launched another series of attacks, wild and unpredictable. One arm stretched so far that it seemed to wrap around me entirely, the thick metallic coil aiming to crush me against the ground. I reacted quickly, twisting out of the way, narrowly avoiding the grip of his limb. The air around me buzzed with the sound of his arms stretching again, but I was ready. With a quick motion, I grabbed the shotgun from my side, pumping it with a sharp click. I turned, dodging the next flurry of attack, firing point blank into the nearest of Fizzaroli's limbs, sending a blast of force that sent the appendage flying off, torn to shreds in a cloud of sparks. "You can barely hold it together, Fizz," I smirked, watching the last of his arms recoil vigorously as the damage took hold. Fizzaroli hissed through the static in his voice. "You think that's going to stop me? I'll stretch your ass into oblivion." His remaining limb lashed out in a frenzy, but I was quicker. My knife cut through the air, slashing at the vulnerable joints of his robotic arm. One by one, it started to buckle, unable to stretch any longer without snapping. Fizzaroli staggered back, clearly disoriented, his body glitching as sparks shot from his broken limbs. He swung again, but this time, I was already doing his final stand, his legs and arm flailing and wrapping around me. I was already there, firing my shotgun point blank into his chest, hitting the core of his system. The blast rocked him backward, causing him to glitch violently as sparks and smoke billowed from the gaping wound. "You really should have stayed in the garage, Fizz," I muttered, moving in to finish this. I raised the shotgun again, aiming at the malfunctioning core. But Fizzaroli wasn't done. His limbs twitched one last time, his arms stretching backwards in a desperate, erratic final effort. I wasn't about to let him get the last word. With a swift motion, I slashed through the remains of his arm as it reached the tent of the plate, catching it on fire. The final blow landed square in the center of his core. Another shot, another blast of power that left him twitching on the ground, his body starting to malfunction beyond repair. Fizzaroli groaned one last time as his form collapsed to the ground in a heap of broken limbs and twisted metal. Sparks and smoke continued to hiss from his remains. "Well, that's that," I said, wiping the sweat off my brow as I holstered my knife and shotgun. I turned back to Stolas and Octavia, who had watched the whole spectacle unfold before them. Stolas was silent, her eyes wide, while Octavia seemed to take a moment to process the fight. Blitz. Stolas began, her voice a mix of admiration and confusion. I had no idea you were capable of such. She began flirting but stopped to look over, still focus on her main goal. I shrugged, glancing over at Octavia. What can I say? I'm full of surprises. Octavia didn't respond immediately, but I saw the faintest shift in her posture, a softening around the edges of her cold exterior. She wasn't looking at me, but something had changed in her gaze, something that said maybe, just maybe, she was seeing me in a new light. Stolas took a hesitant step toward her, his voice quieter now, filled with sincerity. Octavia, I'm sorry. I haven't been the father you needed. But I want to try. I'm willing to try harder. For you. She didn't say anything right away, but I noticed the small twitch of her lips, a sign that she was considering his words. I stepped back, giving them their space. There was no need to push it any further. My work here was done. IMP's first VIP mission went without issue. Turning to walk away, I saw Millie and Moxie trying to put out the fire. I couldn't help but glance back one last time. Fizzaroli was a twisted heap of malfunctioning scrap, his arms still twitching as his system finally gave out. I couldn't help but wonder how my interactions with the real Fizz would go, but I knew I was fully capable of handling myself. Regardless of how our conversation would start, I'd make sure to become allies with him again. The burnt smolders from recent missions still lingered in the air as I crossed the threshold into IMP's shabby headquarters, located in the heart of the Pride Ring. The clamor of tools clattering and muffled voices echoed from the van as we made our way inside. The sun was perpetually setting, casting a dim orange glow over the hellish sky. The light filtered through the cracked windows, bathing our condemned headquarters in an eerie hue. Making our way in, I stepped inside, looking around at the familiar surroundings. There I saw it, cluttered with rogue contracts, and an absurdly large cup of coffee was our still, dingy office. Despite the improvements we've made to our business operations, anyone with power in hell could see we were still a bunch of nobodies. It was time to change that. I couldn't waste any more time with this shabby image. With a determined huff, I surveyed the room, spotting more issues as I went. All right, team, I called out, hoping to rally them up. Today we're doing some serious housekeeping. The imps, who had been unloading their bags of weapons under the leaky, duct-taped roof, stopped to listen. First things first, I continued, we'll wipe every wall on this floor and take down every cobweb. My voice was full of excitement, but they looked at me as though I was crazy. I was about to push forward and continue when Luna's voice broke through the silence. Never thought I'd be here to clean a ceiling, she muttered, and I could practically hear the collective groan of discontent from the others. Hesitation rippled through the group. This wasn't the response I had hoped for, but it wasn't a deal-breaker. I needed to make this task feel more rewarding, something that would bring the team together and make them feel invested. I couldn't micromanage them and force them to enjoy it. I had to get creative. I glanced around and then hit on an idea. So, here's the deal, I said, injecting some enthusiasm into my voice. I'm adding a new system to our business. Employee of the Month. Whoever works the hardest on this cleanup will get the honor. That caught their attention. I could see Luna raise an eyebrow, Millie's expression soften, and even Moxie looked intrigued. I pushed forward with more energy. After we're done, I'll order something on B Eats. Let's celebrate our mission well done. Millie and Luna perked up a bit at the mention of B Eats, but Moxie was still slightly timid about it, but I knew his hard work ethic would push through the slight discomfort. We got to work on our vigorous cleaning on the walls. It wasn't easy in the slightest. Over 2 hours for just 3 rooms, but we powered through, and I pitched in where they needed help. By the time we finished, our once cluttered office felt fresh and clean. The space had a new energy, and I made sure to acknowledge their hard work. You should all feel proud of what we've accomplished, I said, letting them know they should feel proud by immediately dialing for our order. The team immediately shifted focus to the phone in my hand, and energy returned to the group. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get them motivated. By the end of the day, IMP had emerged as a clean office space. The scent of lemon cleaner lingered, a stark contrast to the usual smell of sulfur and despair. It was a small victory, but it felt like a step in the right direction. A few days later, the recent efforts to smooth out IMP's operations had begun to bear fruit in ways I hadn't anticipated. This morning, the mission pile at the office was practically overflowing. It felt like the gates of hell had opened wide, flooding us with opportunities we'd only dreamed of. With a gleeful smirk, I surveyed the stack of papers covering my desk. The variety of assignments was staggering, from taking down gang members in affluent regions of Earth, to high-stakes extraction missions where only the most skilled would survive. It was exactly the kind of work I had been hoping for. I leaned back in my chair, boots propped up on the freshly cleaned desk, the faint scent of lemon cleaner still lingering in the air. A welcome change from the usual stench. I turned to my squad with my now wide smile filling my face. "All right, team," I called, drumming my fingers on the armrest, ready to dive into the chaos. "We've got a heap of missions ahead of us, so let's get going though." Millie looked up from sharpening her axes, heading towards the papers, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "These jobs are huge, Blitz. If we can pull them off, we might actually get some real respect down here." I gave a small nod, acknowledging her words, but I wasn't about to get all sentimental about it. "We'll get respect when we've earned it," I said, glancing at the pile of contracts again. "But first, we've got work to do." Hell, at this point, I was more than ready to demand it. But there was no time to dwell on that now. We had business to do. I glanced at Moxie and Luna, both of them seeming to get the message, now visibly prepared to go challenge ahead. This week was going to be a test for us, a real proving ground. If we could get through these back-to-back missions, we'd not only earn respect, we'd deserve it. I felt that familiar adrenaline rush. This was what I lived for, mission after mission, no time to rest, but the thrill of the chase keeping us going. The satisfaction of success was always just a little bit sweeter after pushing ourselves to the limit. With a nod, I signaled to the team. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us, let's make this a week to remember." And just like that, we were off without another word. We got to it heading forward into another portal. I tapped his fingers rhythmically on the steering wheel as the van rumbled with music down the streets of hell, blurring by in a way that had become almost comforting. The city was as alive as ever, its chaotic hum buzzing through the air. Luna sat next to him, absorbed in her phone, scrolling through Envy, with a level of focus that was almost unnatural. In the back, Millie and Moxie were deep in conversation about a recent job they'd pulled off, talking over each other in the usual banter. In this moment I felt content, the business was growing, I had a team I could rely on, majority of the time, and I was starting to get the hang of this whole staying sober while working thing. The main reason I'd started in my past life was because the overwhelming pressure I had to be great to all the people who expected it from me. Even though hell's streets were filled with all kinds of goods on every corner, I managed pretty well. We pulled up to the parking lot behind the IMP building, a familiar sense of pride swelling in my chest. I had done this. I had built this place from the ground up, me and original Blitz. Hell, we even had consistent clients now. Things were looking up. The business, despite its unorthodox style, was slowly growing, and I was finally doing something I wanted to do to pride, without the unnecessary pressure. A car glided into the one remaining parking spot right in front of me. A car I would recognize anywhere. Something made my chest tighten. It started with the car. A sleek, black vehicle that slid effortlessly into the only empty spot left I was about to claim. I froze, gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. There, sitting in the front passenger seat of that car, was none other than Veronica Mayday. My ex-girlfriend. I didn't even know what to do with that information. The memories of my past life, the original Blitzo, came rushing in all at once. Veronica, the pop star, the demon who I had once loved and, ultimately, pushed away. I remembered everything about her, her silverish white hair with a pink stripe, her voice that could melt steel, and her heart that I had taken for granted. From the corner of my eye, I saw Luna perk up. Her eyes locked onto the car, and the next thing I knew, she was practically vibrating in her seat. "Wait, is that Veronica Mayday?" she asked, her voice full of awe. I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't. My mind was still reeling, the familiar rush of regret rising up inside me. "Yeah," I finally said, my voice betraying a little more emotion than I wanted it to. "That's her." Luna turned to me, her excitement palpable. "No way. She's like, my idol. How do you even know her?" Her eyes were wide as she leaned in closer, utterly oblivious to my internal turmoil. Wait, didn't you date her or something? I swallowed, trying to shove the guilt that was creeping up my throat back down. Yeah, we used to date. Luna was practically bouncing in her seat. Oh my god, Blitz, why did you break up with her? She's literally a pop star. She's amazing. The question hit me like a slap in the face. Why had I broken up with her? I mean, in my past life, I had been an idiot. An addict. Someone who couldn't see the good in front of me. And in this life, while I'd learned a lot and was slowly becoming someone who could actually manage a business, someone who could be better, I still wasn't sure if I was the person Veronica deserved. Even now, even after everything I'd gone through. I clenched my jaw, trying to push the question aside. It's complicated, Luna, I muttered. The last thing I needed was to get into this right now. Especially not with her. Luna, though, wasn't backing down. She looked at me with wide eyes, still in awe of the situation. Complicated? She's like, famous, and she's, like, so cool. Why would you ever break up with her? I took a deep breath and forced a grin, the smile feeling fake but necessary. Alright, Luna, let's get to work, yeah? We've got a business to run. Luna nodded but gave me a skeptical look. Sure, Blitz. But you're gonna have to tell me more about her one day. You know that, right? I chuckled, though there was no real joy in it. Maybe, but not today. As we walked inside, almost sneaking, I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder one last time at Veronica's car. Part of me knew I wasn't finished with that chapter of my life. But I didn't know if I was ready to handle it yet, had I really even changed all that much. I walked into the building with Luna and Moxie, instructing Millie to finding a parking space for us. But I was still trying to shake off the weight of everything that had happened. We stepped into the building and Luna and Moxie also seemed to still feel the effects of the previous encounter. Luna, you alright? I asked, noticing the way she was squirming in her seat as we approached the door. She shot me a glance, her anxiety palpable. I don't know. What if she sees me? I mean, I did my makeup kind of shitty today, she mumbled, clearly embarrassed. I raised an eyebrow, confused. What do you mean? It looks fine. She pulled out a small pocket mirror from her pocket and quickly checked herself. No, it's all wrong. I didn't have time for the usual routine, and I was rushing. She looked at herself with a sigh, her eyes narrowing. It's just not good today, okay? I couldn't help but chuckle, shaking my head. Luna, trust me. Veronica isn't gonna care about your makeup. I shot her a playful grin. Besides, even if she did, I'm sure she'd be too busy tearing into me to notice how flawless you look. She shot me an incredulous look, but I could see the faintest hint of a smile tugging at her lips. Yeah, well, what if she's judging me, though? She muttered, half serious, half joking. I sighed, rolling my eyes but trying to reassure her. Luna, you're great just the way you are. If anyone's gonna get judged, it's me. I'm the one with the history with her, remember? I gave her a half grin, trying to make light of the situation. She didn't look entirely convinced by my speech but put the pocket mirror away regardless. It didn't help that as soon as we entered and almost made it to the front desk, Veronica was entering inside the lobby. Her presence was suffocating, and I could feel Luna's discomfort radiating from her. Moxie came up beside us, his usual deadpan expression showing no signs of the same anxiety that Luna was clearly feeling. But when his eyes fell on Veronica in the lobby, his lips tightened, and I could tell the tension had seeped into him, too. Hey, Blitz, he said, his voice clipped, you gonna stand there all day, or are we actually going to get to work? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I found myself trying to calm Luna with a reassuring look before turning toward Moxie. Yeah, let's go. And then, as if on cue, I heard the sound of that unmistakable voice. Well, if it isn't my favorite little imp. I froze. There she was, Veronica Mayday. And she wasn't alone. Luna stiffened beside me, her wide eyes darting toward the voice, and I could practically feel her buzzing with excitement. Moxie, ever the professional, straightened his posture, his hand resting near his weapon, as if preparing for a battle of some kind. But it wasn't a physical fight that was coming, it was something much worse. I turned slowly, my hands gripping my sides as I forced myself to face the music. And there she was, standing just a few feet away, leaning against the lobby counter like she owned the damn place. She was as stunning as ever, her eyes gleaming with the same mix of mischief and bitterness I remembered all too well. "Blitzo," she said, her gaze locking with mine, and I couldn't help but feel like I was drowning in it. "It's been a while." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My mind raced, but the words I needed to say felt miles away. All I could do was stand there, staring like a fool. Luna, ever the eager one, piped up next to me, clearly starstruck by the pop star's presence. "Oh my god, Verosika Mayday? You're her? Like, you're real?" She was practically vibrating with excitement. Verosika turned to her, offering a playful wink. "Yeah, kid, I'm real. What's your name?" "I'm Luna." She started but quickly stopped herself, realizing she was starting to sound like a fan too much. I could practically see the mental scramble as she cleared her throat. "I mean, it's nice to meet you. I didn't know Blitz knew you, like, that well." Verosika's smile widened, the kind of smile that was just a little too sharp. "Oh, we go way back. Don't we, Blitzo?" I felt like I'd just been punched in the stomach. I shot Luna a look, silently begging her to drop the subject, but she was too caught up in the moment to notice. Verosika's smirk faltered slightly, and I could see the edges of her amusement start to melt away, replaced with something more calculating. "Oh, we didn't exactly have the best breakup, Luna," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Blitzo here had a habit of running off and leaving me with the mess." She gave me a pointed look. "Like the time he stole my card to go joyriding and maxed out my credit cards. Real charming stuff." Luna, still blissfully unaware of the full extent of the situation, blinked at me in confusion. "Wait, so you stole her car? And maxed out her credit cards on what, horseback riding lessons?" I felt my face flush with embarrassment. I really didn't want to talk about that, especially in front of my team. But Verosika was still having fun with this. "Not just horseback riding lessons, darling," she teased, her eyes glittering with malicious joy. "Blitz had quite the habit of running off and causing chaos wherever he went. A real charming fella, let me tell you." I forced a grin, though it felt more like a grimace. "Yeah, I was an idiot back then, but I've changed. I'm trying to be better." "Are you?" Verosika's voice was low, almost mocking. "'Cause, last I checked, you were still playing the same game, just with different stakes." Her words stung, but I couldn't argue with her. Not entirely. I had changed, sure. But some things, they never really went away. Some mistakes, no matter how much you try to atone for them, still linger. There was a beat of silence before Moxie, who had been observing the interaction with a mix of discomfort and curiosity, cleared his throat. "Blitz, Luna, we're here to work, right?" He shot me a pointed look, and I knew what he meant. We couldn't let this drama derail us. Not now. I nodded quickly, forcing my attention back to the task at hand. Right, let's get to work, no more distractions." But as we turned to head toward the elevator, I knew this wasn't over. She'd come here for the same reason as we did work, but hers was purely out of spite of me. But I was going to have to be. Because I could already tell that Verosika Mayday wasn't going anywhere. The moment we walked into the IMP office, the weight of the past encounter with Verosika still lingered in the air. Luna was trying her best to seem unaffected, though her restless energy betrayed her. Moxie, as usual, kept his composure, but I could see the tightness in his shoulders. Millie, on the other hand, was as chipper as ever, though she noticed the tension too. "Sir," Moxie said as he set down his briefcase, his eyes narrowing slightly. "What's the plan for today?" I tried to shake off the unease from the lobby. Verosika wasn't just a pop star to me. She was a reminder of a past I wasn't proud of, one I couldn't escape. But I was trying to build something here, trying to be better. "All right, team," I said, forcing a cheerful tone. "Shake it off. We've got work to do." Moxie gave me a skeptical look. "Sir, are we not going to address the elephant in the room?" "What elephant?" I snapped, though I knew exactly what he meant. "Verosika," he replied bluntly. "It's not every day your pop star ex-girlfriend shows up out of nowhere and parks in your spot." Millie nudged him gently. "Moxie, maybe we should just focus on the job. Whatever's going on between Blitz and Verosika, it's not our business." Luna batted her eyes. "Speak for yourself. I want to know all the details." "Nope," I barked, cutting off the conversation. "We're not doing this. Not today." Let's get inside and figure out who we're offing next. As if on cue, the office door burst open, and a figure stumbled in. He was a lanky demon with wild, unkempt hair and a manic gleam in his eyes. His lab coat was scorched, and he carried a large, smoke-belching contraption that looked like it had been cobbled together from a junkyard. "Imp," he cried, his voice cracking. "I need your help." Millie instinctively reached for her weapon. "Whoa there, buddy. Maybe start with who you are and what you want." The demon's frantic gaze darted between us. "Name's Luke Defrenic. I'm an inventor, a genius. And I've just been wronged in the worst possible way." Moxie crossed his arms. "Let me guess. Your business partner screwed you over, and now you want revenge." "Exactly," Lupta exclaimed, slamming his fist onto my desk. It let out a pitiful wheeze of steam. "This is my greatest invention, a time disruptor. My partner stole the prototype and plans to use it to erase me from existence." "A time disruptor?" Luna asked, raising an eyebrow. "What's it do? Turn back time so you can make better life choices?" Lupta glared at her. "It disrupts the flow of time for a target, aging them to dust or regressing them to infancy. But in the wrong hands, it's a weapon of unimaginable power." I smirked. "Sounds like a fun toy. Where do we come in?" Lupta leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "My partner, Lyle. He's having his dream life on Earth now that he's succeeding. I need you to stop him." Moxie frowned. "If this device is so dangerous, why not destroy it?" Lupta's expression turned sheepish. "Well, the prototype is indestructible, but if you retrieve it, I can recalibrate it to make it safe." "Right," I said, clapping my hands together. "So, we've got a heist on our hands. Sounds like my kind of night." Millie grinned. "Ooh, I've always wanted to crash an underground auction." Luna rolled her eyes. "Just tell me I don't have to wear a disguise." "Actually," Lupta interjected, "you'll all need disguises. The midnight market is invitation only, and they'll sniff out imposters in an instant." I groaned. "Fine, but I'm not wearing anything that makes me look like a clown." A few hours later, we were decked out in our finest disguises. Luna had been transformed into a sleek femme fatale, complete with a slinky gray dress and an air of aloofness that suited her perfectly. Moxie and Millie looked like high-rolling aristocrats, and well, let's just say I'd never been so uncomfortable in a tuxedo. IMP arrived outside Lyle's lavish mansion, disguised as a tour group. Blitzo, Millie, and Moxie stood among tourists in their human costumes, watching the house with sharp eyes. The guide on the loudspeaker casually mentioned Lyle's house, pointing out the absurd wealth of the place. Blitzo rolled his eyes. "Yeah, that's rich guy. Let's get to it." The trio swiftly exited the tour bus and made their way to the mansion. Breaking inside, they found Lyle, lying in bed hooked up to a strange machine. He looked ancient, frail, and utterly miserable. In his hands, he held a photo of a pile of money, his one true love. "I can't live like this," Lyle muttered, his voice cracking. "I'll never feel young again." He tied a knot in his IV line, attempting to make a noose. Just as he was about to end it all, the room was suddenly filled with bright light, and the door flung open. The cherubs of CHERUB descended from heaven in a flash, interrupting the scene. Lyle recoiled, startled by the divine interruption. "We're here to save you," Cletus, the leader, announced with a flourish. "You've helped so many people with your inventions. It's not your time yet, Lyle." I groaned. "Great, the cherubs." Millie raised an eyebrow. "What's the deal with them?" Moxie whispered. "Remember that infomercial that was on earlier? These are the guys from heaven." The cherubs, their faces filled with innocence and misguided optimism, tried to convince Lyle not to give in. They told him that all the people his technology had helped, people he had saved, sent them to protect him from despair. "Look at all the beauty life still has to offer," Cletus chirped. "You're loved, Lyle, you just don't see it yet." I snorted. "Yeah, you know what else is beautiful? The freedom to do whatever you want, without some angelic goons trying to control your every decision." Lyle looked conflicted, as if the angel and devil on his shoulders were his last hope. "I've never felt so old. What can I even do with all my money now that I'm stuck like this?" Cletus tried to cheer him up. "You can give it away. Help others. Make the world a better place." Blitz stepped in, taking a more cynical approach. What good is money when you're too old to enjoy it? What are you really going to do with it? What followed was a demanding battle of wills, with the cherubs trying to convince Lyle to embrace the beauty of life while we pointed out its darker realities. As usual, I couldn't resist stirring the pot, mocking their optimism, exposing their hypocrisy, and generally making a mess of their mission. Lyle squinted at the view. It's nice, I guess. But I've seen plenty of sunsets. They don't pay the bills. I chimed in from behind a bush, rolling his eyes. Yeah, real inspiring. You can't even buy a burger with a sunset. Next, the cherubs brought Lyle to a bustling mall filled with families and laughter. They pointed out the joy of children playing, of people connecting. This is what life's all about, Cletus said with a bright smile. But I was quick to point out the dark side. Sure, until you step on a Lego or get stuck in line behind a screaming toddler. Real magical. Lyle's patience wore thinner with every stop. But it wasn't until they reached an opera house that Lyle started to rethink everything. He was captivated by the performance, the passion of the singer, the beauty of the music. For a fleeting moment, Lyle thought maybe life wasn't so terrible after all. But then, in true Blitzo fashion, he disrupted everything. Moving the spotlight in chaotic ways, he caused a stage light to fall, crashing down on the singer and ending her performance, and Lyle's moment of clarity. But before he could make up his mind, disaster struck. A stray piano fell from the rafters during another chaotic moment, and this time it didn't miss. Lyle was killed instantly, crushed under the weight of the fallen instrument. The cherubs gasped, devastated by the outcome of their failed mission. Blitzo, however, just looked at the wreckage. Well, looks like they did our job for us. Alright team, let's head out quick. Opening the portal, we quickly exited the scene, watching the cherubs fume and a heavenly portal call out to them from behind. Back in IMP's office, me and the team were preparing for the fallout of their mission's failure. We'd killed Lyle, yes, but didn't manage to retrieve the machine. Suddenly receiving a message on my phone, my face fell as we read the text. Lupta knows. He's coming to collect. Just then, Lupta crashed through the wall for the second time, clearly furious. You messed up. I sighed at the damages to our wall. Look, Lupta, we tried, okay? But you're gonna have to deal with the fact that your invention's gone. But before they could say more, a strange figure appeared in the doorway, Lyle, very much alive. I don't know what you guys were trying to do, Lyle said, his voice steady. But I think I've made my decision. I'm not giving up. Lupta, still furious, stared at Lyle, but then a look of understanding crossed his face. I guess it's not all about money after all. We've been through too much. In the devastation of the building, what followed was Wally Wackford bursting into the room, asking if anyone wanted to talk about inventing. The scene was chaotic as ever. I'd need to make sure this didn't happen again, I told myself, realizing I'd reverted a bit back into the old Blitz's ways. But amidst all the madness, Lyle and Lupta stood together, no longer fighting. There's still pain for this though. I can't live like this, Lyle muttered, his voice cracking. I'll never feel young again. He tied a knot in his IV line, attempting to make a noose. Just as he was about to end it all, the room was suddenly filled with bright light, and the door flung open. The cherubs of CHERUB descended from heaven in a flash, interrupting the scene. Lyle recoiled, startled by the divine interruption. We're here to save you. Cletus, the leader, announced with a flourish. You've helped so many people with your inventions. It's not your time yet, Lyle. I groaned. Great. The cherubs. Millie raised an eyebrow. What's the deal with them? Moxie whispered. Remember that infomercial that was on earlier? These are the guys from heaven. The cherubs, their faces filled with innocence and misguided optimism, tried to convince Lyle not to give in. They told him that all the people his technology had helped, people he had saved, sent them to protect him from despair. Look at all the beauty life still has to offer. Cletus chirped. You're loved, Lyle. You just don't see it yet. I snorted. Yeah, you know what else is beautiful? The freedom to do whatever you want, without some angelic goons trying to control your every decision. Lyle looked conflicted, as if the angel and devil on his shoulders were his last hope. I've never felt so old. What can I even do with all my money now that I'm stuck like this? Cletus tried to cheer him up. You can give it away. Help others. Make the world a better place. Blitz stepped in, taking a more cynical approach. What good is money when you're too old to enjoy it? What are you really going to do with it? What followed was a demanding battle of wills, with the cherubs trying to convince Lyle to embrace the beauty of life while we pointed out its darker realities. As usual, I couldn't resist stirring the pot, mocking their optimism, exposing their hypocrisy, and generally making a mess of their mission. Lyle squinted at the view. It's nice, I guess. But I've seen plenty of sunsets. They don't pay the bills. I chimed in from behind a bush, rolling his eyes. Yeah, real inspiring. You can't even buy a burger with a sunset. Next, the cherubs brought Lyle to a bustling mall filled with families and laughter. They pointed out the joy of children playing, of people connecting. This is what life's all about, Cletus said with a bright smile. But I was quick to point out the dark side. Sure, until you step on a Lego or get stuck in line behind a screaming toddler. Real magical. Lyle's patience wore thinner with every stop. But it wasn't until they reached an opera house that Lyle started to rethink everything. He was captivated by the performance, the passion of the singer, the beauty of the music. For a fleeting moment, Lyle thought maybe life wasn't so terrible after all. But then, in true Blitzo fashion, he disrupted everything. Moving the spotlight in chaotic ways, he caused a stage light to fall, crashing down on the singer and ending her performance, and Lyle's moment of clarity. But before he could make up his mind, disaster struck. A stray piano fell from the rafters during another chaotic moment, and this time it didn't miss. Lyle was killed instantly, crushed under the weight of the fallen instrument. The cherubs gasped, devastated by the outcome of their failed mission. Blitzo, however, just looked at the wreckage. Well, looks like they did our job for us. Alright team, let's head out quick. Opening the portal, we quickly exited the scene, watching the cherubs fume and a heavenly portal call out to them from behind. Back in IMP's office, me and the team were preparing for the fallout of their mission's failure. We'd killed Lyle, yes, but didn't manage to retrieve the machine. Suddenly receiving a message on my phone, my face fell as we read the text. Lupta knows. He's coming to collect. Just then, Lupta crashed through the wall for the second time, clearly furious. You messed up. I sighed at the damages to our wall. Look, Lupta, we tried, okay? But you're gonna have to deal with the fact that your invention's gone. But before they could say more, a strange figure appeared in the doorway, Lyle, very much alive. I don't know what you guys were trying to do, Lyle said, his voice steady. But I think I've made my decision. I'm not giving up. Lupta, still furious, stared at Lyle, but then a look of understanding crossed his face. I guess it's not all about money after all. We've been through too much. In the devastation of the building, what followed was Wally Wackford bursting into the room, asking if anyone wanted to talk about inventing. The scene was chaotic as ever. I'd need to make sure this didn't happen again, I told myself, realizing I'd reverted a bit back into the old Blitz's ways. But amidst all the madness, Lyle and Lupta stood together, no longer fighting. They're still paying for this though.